You got it. See, you're tall enough.
Are you sure about that?
You are average.
I'm average height, yeah, but not for Phoenix.
I mean, I don't really have that
Phoenix
control.
is tall.
He's like,
For what it's worth, we're gonna try to do the next 3 lessons in 2 days. However that pans out, I have a feeling this will be quick. I'm hooked on a feeling.
so you have to do 2 points.
More than a feeling.
This is actually close. It's not that you can bend your thumb at the middle of the joint backwards. So that when you straighten your finger, this bone is just bent.
I can't do that.
And it's
Really?
Okay, so Chris can be mad about genetic data if he wants. That's fine. But we're still going to use the data that we have given to us. So I'm about to pass on. So start reading. The intro paragraph and then 3:1. If somebody wants to read aloud, that's fine. Otherwise, we can always read it independently. Then we're going to come back together and probably fly through this lesson real fast. I was missing those. But yeah, that's what I was asking.
That's all the dumb scenario.
Wait, the homework for the cat. What? Cat. My homework was about to eat my cat, so I had to put it down with the
Oh, and Hunter, I need to fix your math. Mr. Allen screwed up, at least that's my suspicion. When I went in to add grades, you didn't show up. And I got curious, so I went to your student profile, and the only class that you were currently in was social studies. Oh, according to Matt. So what that means is Mr. Allen went in there trying to add you to his class, but accidentally forgot to hold down the control button, like when you're clicking in like a checkbox list sort of thing. So he added you to social studies, but wiped away all of your other classes. Yes, so your map, you need to go and tell your teachers probably that they need to update your grades
He
because
check marked the whole thing.
yeah, so I'll talk about that in a
You
second.
should have put a check mark in every single question and every single homework on every single page.
Okay, Satya, let me assign you 100 problems tonight just for rote memorization. And let's talk about how much processes matter versus product.
Oh gosh.
So, what I was looking for is, did you engage with the mathematics? This is the advanced class.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, some of you are focusing on the homework right now, and some of you are focusing on the test, so this is like getting complicated. With the homework, I don't really check your homework unless your test is atrocious. So if your mastery shows me like, oh my gosh, they didn't get this, then I'm going to be like caring and checking your homework. Hey, just give me your 10 for a second. So a lot of times I just throw one check on the front. I've looked through the whole packet, and if you got a check versus a check plus, you could be a little cleaner and your homework could be a little nicer, but check is fine. Checks if you met the criteria, but some of you look like you did it on the bus, and other ones of you look like you like this shade, which is like great, but like it's really clean and really nice, and like there's a difference in work quality, right? So check plus is not the goal. Check is the goal. Check plus is like, hey, this is really, really nice. I applaud your extra effort. With the, to wrap up the homework talk. So if you do your homework and you turn them in, you're fine. Now, the thing I don't want you to get in the habit of, and this is like, you can get there. I know you can probably manipulate how I operate. Don't let that be like, oh, I don't need to do my homework until the chapter test happens. Like, I reserve the right to collect homework more often, but with this class, I trust that you guys are doing it, and I don't need to like punitively check it every day. But with that, if you don't understand something, it's my job to make sure we do. So you need to be engaging with the practice work every night, because the practice work goes beyond what we do in the lessons. Hopefully you've noticed that in chapter 1. What we do in the lesson is not all-encompassing for what we end up practicing. But what we practice is open to be on the test. So some of you guys who put more effort into the practice than others, you're better ready for the test just because you engage with the practice better. If you don't really engage the practice very well, you're probably going to have issues on the test. So, sorry, I've been sitting on these for a couple days. And I actually, when I went to add stuff to my grade book, I realized I did have your mastery grades in my grade book, not homework grades. So my bad. I could have gotten these back to you a day or two ago. Actually, I had them done last week. But they were sitting in my folder to hand back. So, homeworks don't matter that much, really. And in the real world, they don't. Like, homework's going to end up being worth like 10% of your grade or something like that, which is like a negligible portion. Most of the time,
Do you mean high school and college?
whatever you decide to do. You don't necessarily have to go to high school after this, but you're probably going to have to do something. You're going to have job responsibilities. And
How do you not have to go to high school?
you can drop out.
I thought you were going to something.
You can drop out of high school.
You can do whatever you
Wait,
want.
you
It doesn't
can
mean it's a
test out
good
of high school?
idea.
How do you test out of high school?
Take all the final exams, essentially. Okay, but for the social development too, I do think high school is extremely worth it, not for academics.
I'm
but
not
for
getting
social
social development at all. High school is scary.
So,
That is why.
That means you
let's
get
talk about genetics. Oh, so by the way, on most of your papers, I wrote fix under the P, but if I didn't, it's just fix on this one. Sometimes I have separate progression to mastery revisions, and then it would be like, okay, revise these problems, and then come get this assessment, and then, so kind of more like Mr. Hall, but a lot of times, we're moving so quickly through that I just like, I want you to fix your mistakes, and we'll keep moving on.
What do you mean by fix?
Do it again, but better.
Well, like on a
Separate sheet of paper. Sorry, the instructions are in map, so if you go hover over the thing,
Oh.
it'll tell you, but always separate sheet of paper, always revision stapled on top, so your new grade will be on top.
He posted it on that, right?
Yeah,
Okay, Mr. Hall.
I just did- I just did chapter 1 as one like grade on math, and I just gave everyone check pluses because everyone turned in their work. And then the mastery is its own grade. So most of the time, a chapter will have 2 to 3 grades.
Wait, what's chapter 1?
Yeah, that was chapter 1. So, dude, you guys just finished chapter 2, and some of you still haven't. I don't have that graded yet. Yeah, I'm gonna give you guys enough, like some more AO and extensions time before I really grade that. Chris,
Am I gonna have time to finish that in class?
I think it depends on how quickly you get through this.
All right, everybody, shut up. We're gonna do this.
You're the one without graph paper out.
No laughing on your own thing.
Just so we're all aware, this time is wait time for Chris to get out his graph paper.
So let's all stare.
Just skip ahead of it. Give me your people right now.
Okay.
Yes, he does. All right, 311 header. Today is 9/25. Now, if you want to really make your header probably accurate, we're going to be doing 311 and 2. And it's going to be area and tree models. So we should by now be well aware that all possible outcomes of an event make up our sample space. So when drawing a deck of cards, or drawing out of a deck of cards, if we are talking about each individual card, we're not talking just suit or anything else, there are 52 different objects in the sample space. Right? We're talking about a deck of cards, but I only care about what suit you get. How many objects are in the sample space? 4, right? There's only 4 different suits. Your outcomes are, it's either clubs or spades or hearts or diamonds. So when we talk about sample space of different characteristics, it gets a little bit hairy. Jeans, hairy. So one thing that researchers study is your bone, like your joint operation, and how like certain parts of your body look. Like, is your ear attached or detached on the lobe? Can your thumb bend backwards like the hitchhiker's thumb, or does it stop straight when you bend it backwards? Can you roll your tongue into a U or W? Some people can do the W, which is like ridiculous. So from there, we can use our area model from the lower levels of math. Are you okay? Do you need help? Do you need a pencil? I'm trying to vamp time until he sits down, and like I don't want to write stuff with him like up and trying to figure stuff out. But my better question is, how did you make it through? 1A and 1B without a sharp pencil?
We didn't need them.
Connections and typing.
Spanish was online. And connection.
Okay, so you started your school day without an effective writing utensil.
I mean, I just found one in the hallway.
You guys concern me.
Hey, I need to work so I can get that English works for me last week. I need to get that.
No, sock. Thank you.
So, an area model is a fantastic graphic organizer for representing two different traits compared at the same time. So if we go around and we survey, and we find out that half the people surveyed can bend their thumb backwards as a hitchhiker's thumb and half cannot, and half of them can roll their tongue and half cannot, then like what amount of people would be able to have hitchhiker's thumb and roll their tongue? Jacob? It'd be 1/4. And so would it be here, and so would it be here, and so would it be here, because they always have to add up to one whole, because it was 100% of the people surveyed.
Did you want us to write that down?
I mean, if you want to write that one down, but then the next one gets a little bit more complicated with the data.
The chances of someone being able to do 9 is very small.
Yeah, but so is the chance of them being able to do
Both.
Not
Yeah.
in this situation.
Well, this was data that we collected, right? So then we actually go with our. So really, 1/4 of people can do hitchhikers now from this survey, is what we're saying. I forget if this is the actual data. I don't know. They just changed it up.
Good morning, Penelope Chalfant, please come to the office.
So go ahead and set this up.
Chalfant, please come to the office.
And you could just label like thumb, tongue, whatever. Then they tell us 7/10 can roll their tongue. So we need to set up like a yes, no. Now notice how the 1/4 is narrower than 3/4. Likewise, I'm going to make my 7/10 region larger than my 3/10 region.
question is this?
Two. It's 2. Literally 3-2.
God dang it.
Richard, what was the purpose of you getting your book if you had yet to open it?
Yeah, why am I looking at that when I have my book?
I'm struggling to believe that y'all are going to be in high school next year.
I know, it's terrifying.
We are too.
Like, no one's going to hold your hand next year. And do, I mean, they might say open the page.
I got
but-
Steven credit for losing.
So you have one person on each hand.
We only exist the same high school.
Now, whether we use fractions or whether you decide to use decimals is up to you. We could multiply 0.25 by 0.7, or we could just multiply these fractions and get 7/40ths. I could get 21 40ths. 40ths.
Okay.
Oh, I hate
Use decimals.
Why do you hate
it. It
fractions?
looks weird.
Because it's over 40?
Yes.
Okay, how's your handwriting that good?
Because I turn on calligraphy ink.
Oh, it's like auto change writing.
No, it cleans it. So like, depending on what direction you're writing, depends on how thick it is. It just looks a little
I don't
finicky.
like it.
Wait.
So I write out like
Okay, that's
different
all
parts
it
of my
means for
number
writing.
get different thick. So that's when I click down here all the time. A lot of teachers don't, and they leave it on the marker, and then it's,
You.
you know what I mean? It's just like a little thicker, and it's all the
Nasty.
same. Sorry. So does this make sense?
That's a disgrace.
2 traits we set up on the table, and we are able to compare.
Like
I'm just going
XX
to leave
and
all of them.
XY or something.
Sure, if that makes sense in your brain.
Yeah, I get it.
No, like with
I don't really know what you were saying, so I'll
Like
just say
blonde
sure.
eyes, like recessive traits.
Oh, yeah.
That's a Punnett
So,
That's a Punnett square.
Yeah, the Punnett square.
That's what this is.
Oh,
many people are still related back to the American Indians. You can find like traces of the bloodstream because I mean, as you know, with colonization and everything else, like genetics started to get crossed. So if we have that you are 73% chance to be, sorry, I gotta check this. Navajo population can be classified as 73% versus 27% because you either have O blood type or A blood type. Like the genetics behind those people they only have two different blood types, O or A. So what is the probability that like both people you look at have A blood type, or both people you look at have O blood type, or one O, one? So we use again the area model to figure this out. Now, if we decide to use decimals on this one because they're all out of 100. About 53%.
Wait, so it's more, is it more likely that someone, that the two people you look at will have type A?
Do you have your box off over there? Keep going.
I'm confused.
I keep going.
What the heck is this?
Just trust me.
That makes sense.
This is leading us to our work with quadratics. Just trust me. This is leading us to our work with quadratics. So here's my question. I don't even know what the textbook asks. I love CPM, but I know what they're trying to teach, and I know what works and what doesn't, so sometimes that's not a surprise for you guys. What is the probability that when looking at two Navajo people, one of them would have blood type A and one of them would have blood type O?
19%.
Chris?
About 19%.
No.
No? Is that true? Oh shoot.
No, one person has A and one person has
Satu?
O. 70%.
No.
What's the question?
He was looking at the right box.
There should be a 0 here, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh.
I can't believe you guys let that ride. That's
That's why I was
70%.
so
I'm
confused.
confused.
You did the
Then
same
why
thing.
didn't anybody? Dang it! Why didn't anybody raise a hand?
Because you do stuff
You
like
told,
this.
because you told us just wait and what? You just
Wait,
said
well, oh my god. I felt that.
I thought you were gonna.
The other thing is, y'all should have your own calculators out. I'm never gonna make you, but to get comfortable with like doing calculations, and I can move where my stack of 83s live. But really, if you don't have a graphing calculator, you want to start using those to get comfortable with it, just so it's like not a change. So still, no.
Hey, wait.
Hunter? Why? The traits up here and the traits over here are comparing the same trait. It's not like thumb and tongue, it's blood type and blood type. So this box and this box are both communicating the same thing. One person O, one person A. So we put them together. If I want to write with a marker, if I want to talk about both O, that's about 53%. If I want to talk about both A, that's about 7%. And then both different, so 1O, 1A, and we could really write like 1O, 1A, that's about 40%, because this would round up, because that's 7. So it's about 40% because I have to combine those.
And one vote, 80.1%.
Who what?
One vote,
Hey, wait, since we're talking about blood type.
Both being, well, sorry,
Blood type
0.07.
question.
No.
What's your
Boom,
credit card
boom.
number?
And the 7%'s right. Quit making me second guess myself.
But
Forget if
it's
I have eraser
similar,
sizes here. Do I have eraser sizes? No.
Maybe you just couldn't go to time.
No. Now you've broken it, Midden.
Knit it.
Hey, Mr. Austin.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Chris has a fun question about blood type.
Yeah.
Do you guys
Does
ever
anyone-
want to finish this lesson?
I was gonna ask you, what's your credit card?
4427 4468 4934. I'm making stuff up, dude. And the CBC is high.
What's your PIN number?
Alright, so if you know about those like spam phone calls, if you can catch them, Mr. Kabilo's got funny stories with this too. You can like mess with them back because they think they're talking with people that are falling for a scam.
Yes.
I got a call from the
We just
IRS
use the credit
saying that I owe student loans for college and I work well.
So this guy wanted like my email address, and I was like, yeah, okay, it's my email address at mail.com. And he's like, is that true? And I was like, are you really who you say you are? Let's just play this back and forth. All right, so Nick and Zach from Vermont end up on this island, right? I don't know why they were on a ship with just the two of them. Seems dangerous, but they are now shipwrecked. So
all the other people could have died.
they're real bored, so they start making a probability model.
Wait,
What are the
something?
Why would you do that?
Leave it out.
He's gonna die.
Hold on. I knew you would react how you're reacting. Could you solve this? Now, the most dangerous thing with this is it's solving the same thing both ways, right? Both blood type. So, because most of us, except for Hunter, got the last question wrong, and I think this is like this is all we're going to do with this, and we're going to bump over to the next lesson. If we fill this in,
Also, how old are these people? Because if they're old enough to be donors, they should probably have their donor card.
Yeah, they would need to know the probability of it being like O positive or O negative, and they should know their blood
It's
type.
O negative, and also if the person is AB negative, it doesn't matter what the other person is. The AB negative is the universal receiver.
Okay, you know how about genetics.
If you have AB,
I'm the universal
you're
donor.
good to go.
I'm a universal taker.
O negative.
So
O negative is the
if we start to multiply these out, there's not actually a whole lot of multiplication to do, because these diagonal boxes are each unique. And they're all perfect squares, actually. Like 0.11 squared is 0.0121.
hope it does.
How did they expect to get a blood transfusion on a random island?
You know,
Yes.
they're gonna find the needles and the tubes.
Of
that they
course,
need.
there's
Also,
going to be sterile
We're not
materials on
considering
the
O
island.
negative,
Fine.
O positive. You're not considering the fact.
Weren't you the one that wanted to get through this lesson?
Yes.
So then,
It's not the same as O negative. Jeez, calm down. Boy.
there are always going to be two squares that share the same value. Once we start working out the rows or down the columns. And likewise, I just want us to fill in a few boxes to be able to have this conversation. If you get asked, what's the probability one of them is B and one of them is O, it's not just this box.
It's gonna
It's
be
that box and this box. Sorry, this is O. I'm missing, yeah, I know. I make mistakes.
And
There's
we
another
don't know
zero
this.
in there.
It's the same thing as last time.
So we could keep going and keep filling in,
Are
right?
we good?
But we're not going to. So that's how area models work for probability. And it's real easy because, as you can see, the more options you have, you just build your area model bigger. So if I'm going to roll a die and flip a coin. Right, I just make my area model match, except that horizontal line should be in the middle. But I make my area model match what I'm doing, right? 2 options over here, 6 options up here, and then I can compute everything. Because half and half, 1, 6, 1, 6, 1. What?
Is there left hand side?
No, I just drew that in the wrong location.
I was taught
And it
wrong.
doesn't have to be drawn correctly, but that helps your brain if you do draw it correctly. Now, on the same vein, I'm glad somebody got it. It wasn't just a waste of a bad pun.
It's always a waste.
Are we like figuring out the probability that he's going to
Jacob,
die?
you deserve to be punished.
Where are we going?
No, let's do the
No,
probability.
so that was gonna be what are the probability they have the same blood type.
Oh.
Or so if we really explore this stuff, we can ask a lot of questions about it. So if we said what's the probability they have the same blood type, it'd just be here plus there plus there plus there, right? All those probabilities added up. What's the probability that like Nick could donate to Zach? We could look at all those possible donation routes, which is why they have this. O is universal donor, right? So O goes to A or B or AB. So we could explore that a lot, but I feel like we can all add probabilities pretty easily and work with the story.
So AB can't donate.
Oh, positive.
AB is just a receiver.
Any's
Yeah.
so positive.
Well, AB could give to AB. And so this doesn't mean AB can't donate to anyone. This is showing everyone that O can donate to. Because then they tell us that,
Oh.
I think they tell us one of these guys is O.
Oh. Well, if it's the guy that's
Yeah.
dying, that's not gonna help.
Right. Well,
Dude,
it's
how
on.
would the
This is morbid. Let's go.
Well, hopefully,
No,
it just
no,
the best
no.
case situation
You make complete
is that
No.
All right.
is
Now,
Zach's the one that died.
similar.
He's AB negative.
We're trying to finish.
Similarly, we are going to spin two spinners. Now, tree diagrams really only work in our brains if we think about one thing happening and then the other thing happening. So, for tree diagrams, if we look at 312 up there on the screen, right?
No, that's great.
Up there on the screen. Okay.
Oh. Oh.
We start with me, right? Or whatever. We just start with a point. From there, we are going
Here.
To E.
No.
Can we go to read? Can we go to read? Let's go to read.
When
So you go to E.
Splin one.
What about
Splin.
Guys, I think he's
Chris.
waiting. Oh, that's Guys, he's waiting.
We've done wasting time. You know that word means spin. You know that smart boards merge things together sometimes. And you know what you're doing. You as an 8th grader trying to make jokes that aren't funny. Sure, it looks like an L. The word SL or SPLing is not a word. You're aware of that. Some of your classmates are also hyper aware that you are not at their level of maturity. I'm not talking to any one of you specifically. Some of you are like aware, like the flip side, right? Oh, I know I'm not as mature. I need to just sit here and chill and like not let these jokes out of my brain. They're not jokes. They're just observations most of the time. We start at a point. That is 100%, and then we start splitting. Spin 1, I have 3 options. That doesn't really matter how you make your tree diagram, but I like to, in the middle, write what's happening, and then we put the results, right? I could get an I, a U, or an A. Now, tree diagrams can also work horizontally, but for me, I like making them vertically, and we'll show you another one here in a moment. Then, if I spin spinner 2, do I just like, okay,
No.
what else?
Independent.
I need the spinner 2 for if I got an I. I need spinner 2 for if I got a U, spinner 2 for if I got an A.
Like one after another.
So then, where we use this is to actually calculate out the chance that I got an A and then a false, or an F, whatever those things mean. So, what's the chance of getting an I up here?
50.
What's the chance of getting a U? Going back to our circle math, fraction is going to be an easier choice.
Hoyos.
It's 60 out of 360,
What's
right?
circle math?
Because they give you the degrees.
Oh.
The interior degree of the angle tells you how much of the circle it is. So that's a 6. And honestly, tree diagrams are better if you use fractions. Now, Steven will probably disagree with me, but that's just because I like fractions better.
When do we do circle lines?
And that we'll do more of it this year. 2/6, right? Because that's what's remaining for the half. It's 2/3.
No, 1/3.
No,
Please,
2/6.
Save
Half
the,
is
where?
Was what I wrote wrong?
Save the family and
But you
simplify.
said
Simplify.
we're supposed to always
Well, yeah, but okay, hear me out.
Come on.
My brain said we have a half over there. A half is 3/6. I have remaining 2 of them.
Then why did we write 3/6?
We could have.
Save a family.
So,
and
really-
simplify fractions.
Really, what I need to get at there is I don't care what you write in your work. Your answers need to be simplified and reduced. So then I fill in the probabilities for true and false, right?
1, 4, 3, 4. 1, 4, 3, 4. 1, 4, 3, 4. And we're done.
Yeah, if we did not.
That's a little bit unfair.
What's the probability I end up here?
High. 3 over 12. 1.
3/12.
I'll save a family and simplify that. The correct answer is 0.25.
Any questions?
That's actually a pretty good possibility.
Correct answer is 0.25.
Because false is so strong. And A is not, like, unlikely. But what's the chance I end up here?
FU. Oh, no!
Thanks, Sadia.
I didn't mean
Sure, you didn't mean that. An 8th grader had an opportunity to say F you, and they didn't mean anything by it. 1/6.
If I wanted to say that, I would have said heck you. Or
One.
animal.
1/6 times 3/4 gives me 3
Over 24.
24ths. 1/8.
It's the final
What about
answer,
T?
right?
Final answer needs reduced. Yeah, but I'm always going to write it unreduced first, because that's how I got there. That's the math I did. Then reduce. Otherwise, you're going to make mistakes.
T would be
If
the
you try to
hardest
jump straight to the reduced form, you're going to eventually make mistakes. So then, biggest thing to cover before we just like move on, the bottom of all of these, if done correctly, this plus that plus that plus that plus that plus that need to add up to 1. Also, here plus here plus here need to add up to 1 because each layer is another probability that when we look at all of them encompasses the whole 100%.
We're gonna have
So-
to do that one time.
Yes.
Like, add everything up.
No. Well, I mean, if you want to check your answers.
Yeah, I guess that's
If you don't
So if you create it horizontally, this would be a horizontal representation of it. And then sometimes they bold the path they take. So that'll be highlight it. Like on your test, you would just highlight.
Or leave red. We circle it. I leave red.
Yeah, I mean, so like, if you circle this T at the bottom, we know how you had to get there. Right? So you had to start with like, and sometimes we'll talk like start with a subject or something like that, and then you do run a test and whatnot. This is just spinners. So you can start with like the name of the game over here or something like that. Now, the one thing that they say here that I think is not going to be a misconception our class has is obviously these regions don't all get the same probabilities.
It's pretty simple.
In the tree diagram, we make it split just however we draw it, but the size of things doesn't matter. It's the math that gets us there. That's why I put the fractions on these lines. Now, an argument could be made for the horizontal tree diagram and that it would be easier to write fractions on your lines. That is a good argument for making a horizontal tree diagram, is then like my whatever fraction could just go like right on that line and it'd be easy. Rat race.
Wait.
What?
I get it.
Oh, no, never mind.
So-
That actually fine. You won't get in there.
So, here's my question. And we have a few minutes. We can solve this. What is the probability the rat ends up in region A versus what is the probability the rat ends up in region B?
Well, let's see. Can I come up and write on the smartboard? Because I don't want to have to copy it.
1/2.
I underthrew. That was me, not you. Yeah.
I'm gonna
Let's,
come up with
let's work it as a group. Now, don't just make this a fight. Okay?
So, this is all. These are all 1/3.
Okay. So, yeah, we'll say when making a choice, a rat has no preference of one direction versus the other. Now, certain animals, you could argue they'll preference to go straight, like path of least resistance, but what to say a rat just chooses randomly?
These are 1/3, and then these coming off of this are 1/2.
Yeah, those are for 1/2. Okay, who builds their house like that?
This is not a house. This is a lab
And then
subject.
this over here.
Okay, never mind.
So you could argue that there's like cheese or something in one of these regions, and they're testing like a new antihistamine to see if the rat's gotten better on its allergies and can now smell the cheese better than it did yesterday. Like something like that would be the case for building something like this.
The red line is an airtight container. Obviously.
Not airtight. He needs to be able to smell it through the
Yeah.
paths.
No, he can't. No,
He can't smell it.
All right, so
Airtight container, see?
how do we find the probability of one of those paths? So Rich, at the bottom, tap that pen. Bottom right, tap that pen. Then tap a highlighter in the middle of the pens. Then choose a color. Highlight a path. How do we figure out the probability of that path?
1/3 times 1/3 total 1/9.
Okay, so somebody write that somewhere.
I suppose I should do it because I'm up
I suppose you're correct.
I suppose. Am I right?
No one.
You might want to write bigger.
Dang
if you
I
So
did upside
erase
down
it.
and.
Put a line.
Is that
You have to hold the eraser flat, like flat on the board. You have to put the pen down sometimes.
Nope.
I'm gonna redo
Erase the
everything.
word.
Nice job.
Chris, you're so smart. Well, he did math.
Is it just 1/9 times 3?
Wait, what?
We have 3 paths to get there, right? I mean, the first path was a
No.
9.
No, it was 1/3.
Every path is sorry, but the
Yeah.
first path to get into the cheese, you said is 1/9 chance that he takes that path. Is it just 3 times a 9? No, because each way in has a different probability he ended up on that path. What was the middle path in? So grab another highlighter, Chris.
1/3.
Highlight the middle path in. That's 1/3, right? What's the lower path into the cheese?
1/9.
No, it's not.
No, 1/6.
So to figure out the probability of the cheese, it's 1/3 plus 1/6 plus 1/9. Which common denominator?
18. Yeah.
18.
I said 6.
So jot this on your paper real quick. I'm gonna hop up here because you're writing super tiny, and you should write this down potentially. If we have 1/3, I'm just gonna write in order 1/6 and 1/9, and we convert them all into 18ths. I'm hoping that maybe we're at the level that we can do this in our heads. We can do 6 18ths,
Plus 3.
3 18ths,
11. 11.
Now,
Yeah. Oh.
can you in 5 seconds tell me the probability he ends up in region B? What is it? 7/18, right? Now this is another application of the word complementary. These situations are complementary to each other because there's only a set number of outcomes, and together they have to make a certain number. Not 90 degrees, but 100%. So we can kind of reference that 7/18 is complementary to 11/18 because it's the rest of the probability. Do tree diagrams make sense? Yes. We'll pick up here tomorrow and talk about it in the practice. So here's what's up. Those two homeworks, 6 through 11 and 17 through 22, do at least, like, I don't know, 10 problems, something like that. Just do some work there. Make sure you understand these concepts.
You gotta do 10 problems in that.
I'm just reading from both of the homework.
No, like total. Like, you can put them together on one assignment page and just do, like, I don't know, like 8 or 10 problems. Something.
I'm just
Do it till you're
Can I
comfortable.
do 3?
No. You must do a minimum of 7. There, I'll give you a definitive. That's the least you could get by with.
I'll do
and-
7.5.
They're doing big homework too.
Yes, but you don't have to do every problem, so you can pick and choose what problems you want to do.
Pick and choose problems from 311.
And 312.
Okay.
So merge those homeworks together, 6 through 11, 17 through 22, because those are like 6 problems each.
I do 25, can I have an E for the